let me make that very clear right now. What happened in Gaza is not a genocide.
So what do you call it? Well, what is it exactly?
I call it a war.
Do you know about the Hannibal Directive?
On roofs, that's the stupidest conspiracy theory.
It's not a conspiracy theory. Yoav Gallant confessed to it. This has been confirmed.
The person who's most responsible for anti-Semitism in the world today is Benjamin Netanyahu.
I would make sure that I have a buildup of IDF soldiers at the border with Gaza to ensure that my people are safe. But he didn't do that, and I don't know why he didn't do that.
Well, I can tell you exactly why, because he's interested in his own political preservation, and he saw that as an opportunity to continue in power.
You know, after all this, he's still gonna win.
Am I allowed to finish a point?
Yeah, but you're like, Qatar talking points are really silly, right?
First of all,
that's not nice.
That is completely offensive. You don't have to be disrespectful when I'm making these points. I'm just telling you.
In terms of fair elections, allowing LGBTQ people.
It's an apartheid state. How are you going to say it's fair elections? Palestinians aren't allowed to vote.
You know why? Because
they're stuck in a situation. Oh my God. What are you saying?
That PLO funds people to kill Jews. How about this?
You live in an alternate
Jews
universe.
Should be allowed to live in the West Bank.
I don't.
Why are Jews not allowed?
I don't.
So you believe in apartheid?
Because they keep building illegal settlements.
What if I build a house legally? I buy land.
They're stealing land.
They don't want Jews in the West Bank.
Why don't they let the Palestinians build houses in Israel?
There's 2.8 million Arabs in Israel living better lives in Israel than the West Bank and Gaza combined. You just hate Jews. I will not.
No, I don't hate Jews.
Then why can't they live in the West Bank?
I hate disgusting,
why can't they live in the West Bank?
Propagandists
why can't a Jew live in
human
Gaza?
beings like trash like you. What's up? Welcome to Her Take. I'm Anna Kasparian, and we have a fantastic show ahead for you all today. Among the topics we're going to discuss is Israel's PR war, which involves hundreds of millions of dollars in acquiring influencers, social media platforms, and even legacy media outlets. Later, we'll also talk about President Donald Trump's speech in Israel. Some argue that he made some statements that raised some eyebrows. We'll be debating whether or not that's true. We'll also give you an update on other foreign policy, namely Trump's willingness to potentially give Ukraine some long-range missiles to use against Russia. And Lindy is going to round the show out with a fun topic. We're going to talk about this big theory that Taylor Swift's new lyrics are really MAGA coded. Is that true? Well, we're going to have Lindy adjudicate that for us, which I'm very excited about. For our guest today, we have Dr. Gina Loudon. She is a co-host over at Rav TV. The name of the show is American Sunrise, and she's also a children's book author. Thank you for having us, or thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Emily Austin. Emily is a sports broadcaster and influencer and Miss Universe judge. In recent years, she has weighed in on political and cultural commentary. She's a proud Jewish advocate for Israel and has been a member of Israel's United Nations mission and has met with high-ranking Israeli officials, including President Isaac Herzog and Benjamin Netanyahu recently during the UN General Assembly. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
All right, well, why don't we get started with our first topic, and that has to do with the ongoing PR war. I know, Emily, you've been accused of a lot, so this is a good opportunity for you to kind of weigh in on what you've been accused of and what the reality is. So I'll set this up. Here's what we know. So Israel is fully engaged in what they're calling their Eighth Front War. That's a reference to the 7 countries that they are currently in conflict with, but the Eighth Front is really the so-called PR war. And it's all about kind of manipulating the narrative to win the PR war now that they're kind of losing favorability, not just among the left, but among younger conservatives. So a few weeks ago, during the UN General Assembly, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with social media influencers and laid out a plan to essentially attempt to win the PR war. And we've got that clip. Let's take a look.
How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are in social media. So we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. We have to fight the fight, okay? To give direction to the Jewish people and give direction to our non-Jewish friends or those who could be our Jewish our friends.
Yeah.
So after that meeting, a lot of different news stories came out, including one from Responsible Statecraft arguing that Israel is paying influencers $7,000 per post. Now, the way that that's being carried out is, in my opinion, meant to kind of make it difficult to figure out where the money's coming from. Conceal the money. I mean, you see this happen with nonprofits all the time. They write that these influencers are likely being paid around $7,000 per post on social media, such as TikTok and Instagram, on behalf of Israel. Bridges Partners, a firm working for the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sent a series of invoices for its influencer campaign to Havas Media Group in Germany, an international media group working for Israel. The invoices detailed a sum of nearly $1 million, $900,000, starting in June and slated to end in November for a cohort of 14 to 18 influencers to create content. Now, that story has led to all sorts of influencers being accused of taking $7,000 per post. I know I've seen that happen a lot with you, Emily, and you were also at that meeting with influencers. So what's the reality of the situation?
So I'll speak on behalf of myself and honestly on behalf of the government a little bit here, the Israeli government. There are a lot of Jewish advocates who are making bank off of this war. And it's not from the government because honestly, they can't afford what we charge for public speaking. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has plenty of conferences in Jerusalem. They don't even do so much as reimbursing your flight. We all they target influencers who agree with the cause and then recruit us for meetings like what you saw with Bibi for messaging on the same, I guess, wavelength, because everyone's kind of putting all these statements out there, and Bibi was like, why don't we unify our messaging? Which, if you're already pro-Israel, that's a good idea. Now, I think what it turned into was, oh, they don't even believe in the cause, they're getting paid $7,000 per post, which if I was getting $7,000 a post, with all due respect, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I'd be on vacation once a week, because the amount of posts I've done about Israel for free, I'd be a multi-millionaire if that were true, and many others too. With that being said, I can safely say the government's not funding any influencer. And to be honest, I don't think these Jewish influencers are worth their money spending on. I think they do what every other government does. These sponsored trips, visit Jerusalem. It's mostly for non-Jews, actually. It's mostly for Catholics. It's mostly for minority communities. I know they did a trans trip to Israel through the MFA. They did a Blacks for Israel trip, but it's actually not the Jews who are benefiting from these trips or agendas. We use our own money to get there. If we meet with the government officials, I met with Prime Minister, I met with Herzog, that wasn't on their dime. That was on my dime. I'm sure if you go on your own expense and you meet them, you'll be accused too of taking the $7,000 per post. It's just not the reality. And the Esther Project, never heard of it. Whatever you just said, Chava Media, never heard of it. Maybe other people are taking that money. I'm very jealous if they are. Let me know why you're getting paid and I'm not. But this is not something unique to Israel. Imagine women for Trump. We already all like Trump. Now the government's like, hey guys, we're going to pay you to say something you already believe in. I would sign up for that immediately. And Qatar is doing the same thing. Saudi is doing the same thing. Every country is doing the same thing, but it's like Israel will get singled out for that. And that's what I don't like about that.
I think the issue is that the volume in which they're doing it. There's a massive amount of money. And with all due respect, I don't think it's completely accurate to say that influencers aren't getting paid. Because let me tell you.
By the government?
Wait. They offer that money to me, and I sent you that exact email, let me pull it up. The Consulate General of Israel, wrote me an email offering to pay me to go to Israel. They would pay all my expenses and also pay me, and then they offered to give me a spot for my guest. I shot that down. I declined because it didn't sit right with me. This is about a year ago, So I don't think Anna was saying that they were targeting Jewish influencers. The issue is that they were targeting influencers. They are targeting influencers.
But yeah, I just said they do these trips to Israel. They pay for their costs and their hotels.
You're saying that the point that she's making is correct. They are targeting influencers to convey a pro-Israel message around the country because they understand.
Did they ask you to put out any messaging, or they offered you a
trip?
They did,
absolutely.
In the email? Can I see it?
By the way, they
wanted you to use specific language while visiting the trip?
They don't give me a script. They wanted me to use the way that I usually talk with my audience and convey a pro-Israel message to my audience, which I refuse to do.
But are you upset they offered you that trip when every other country does the same thing for influencers?
I've never gotten another.
Yeah, they do.
I've never
Qatar's doing a trip at the end of the month for Black conservative influencers.
But we don't have a problem in the country of high level, social media influencers influencing our government in terms of foreign policy as it pertains to Qatar. And by the way, Qatar is a U.S. ally. We literally have our largest military base there. And in fact, it played a really important role in ceasefire negotiations, which is why Hamas negotiators were there to begin with. That was at the behest of Donald Trump, who wanted them to remain there so they can, continue the negotiations and get a ceasefire signed. I think what people are noticing and what people are being critical of is the level of influence, it appears, Israel has over our foreign policy, both through the Israel lobby, of course, bribing our politicians.
Well, the Qatar lobby is putting tenfold what Israel's putting.
There's no equivalent of AIPAC
lobbies?
on the Qatar side. There's just no equivalent.
There isn't an equivalent. You're right.
AIPAC is there's AIPAC hegemony in the United States Congress right now. Like, a lot of Republican representatives are telling the truth. Matt Gaetz, who's, he has no incentive to keep up the charade anymore. He's saying the first thing that happened when I entered the United States Congress was sit down for a Q&A session with AIPAC, and then AIPAC members would come and basically auction off their politicians. Like, if they like you, they'll donate.
Yeah.
So they would hit a button and say, oh, yeah, Matt Gaetz did a good job. It looks like he's going to be loyal to Israel. I'm going to donate $5,000 to his campaign. They were like selling off politicians like cattle. This is not the way the American system should be.
And it's more, look, we're just talking about influencers here. There's something even more nefarious happening, which we just learned about thanks to reporting from Dropsite News. They obtained leaked emails showing that in 2015, when Republican Senator Marco Rubio was running in the Republican primary, he was specifically being vetted.
Oh, I saw that. Wow.
He was specifically being vetted by Israel to see whether or not he's pro-Israel enough. And so Larry Ellison, who's the founder of Oracle, was working alongside the Israeli ambassador to the United States to do the vetting to make sure he's favorable enough to Israel. And then after he was vetted, Larry Ellison held a huge fundraiser for him in the election cycle.
Yeah, and Anna, you and I have clashed a lot on this issue, and I want to give you so much credit for being on the forefront of this, because
I wouldn't say I'm on the forefront of anything.
The forefront of what? You're saying that they're
exposing the foreign influence on our politicians, on our influencers, essentially everywhere. And I know that because I lived it. I ran for Congress when I was 24 years old. It was psychotic. It really was. I don't recommend it. It's really traumatizing for someone that young. But one of the first people who approached me was somebody from AIPAC, and they asked me to write a paper in support of, at that time, there was a lot of discussion about the JCPOA, remember, in 2016? So around that time, I had to write a paper pledging my allegiance to Israel. And the reason why I did that, I was incredibly naive. My mentor was Congresswoman Grace Meng. She represents a Flushing area. There are a lot of Jewish Americans there. And she's like, you got to write this paper, otherwise you're not going to win. I was running from Pennsylvania. She's like, you got to do this. It's just the way that, I hate it too, but it's
what
just
about
the way
all the congressmen and senators who hate Israel very vocally? Actually, they make careers
Which
like
ones?
Matt
Which
Gaetz
one?
about hating Israel. Thomas Massey, you just mentioned Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's so many congressmen and congresswomen.
They don't hate
I wouldn't
Israel.
say they hate
They are
Israel.
America first. They understand that we are the United States of
first
America.
is great, but why is it
And
America
they're against
only?
forever wars.
Why
I
is
think
it?
that's a big thing, is where's the money going? I think one of the really important things here, and one of the great things we can celebrate about this moment that we're in historically, is that we know all of this.
That's
because, listen, Big Pharma has been buying off influencers and politicians for a long, long time, and there's no reporting. Not even to mention they buy off major media in this country all the time, so major media won't run the stories that are exposing the corruption that is within not just Big Pharma, but the AMA, the APA, the list goes on. At least we know about this. I find that really refreshing for our politics today, and I think we have RFK Jr., our secretary, and also President Trump, really to thank for this level of transparency that's newfound so that we can have this conversation. Because I do think it's important to understand if billions of dollars are going in from various countries, and I'm going to Israel this week. I'm going to, full disclosure, nobody's paying for it. If they'd like to, I'll take up a collection.
I'll take it
little
too if you're
GoFundMe
watching.
account. But I think it is important that we know what money is coming in, and maybe even that there are groups out there taking count of this country put in this much money, this country put in this. That's great to know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's more transparency now compared to years prior. I mean, corruption has been a really big part of our government, especially after the Citizens United ruling. And look, I want to be very, very clear about something. I want all the money out, okay? But if we have to pick between corporate interests and foreign interests. We can only have one. I want all foreign money out.
Yeah,
period.
I think you've been very consistent on this issue, and something that I think you and I will align on. I don't want to be shipping off $40 billion to Argentina either.
I totally agree with that.
I don't.
Why are we bailing out Argentina?
We should be elevating and prioritizing the American people.
Yes.
Full stop. End of story. No argument. I don't want to be sending billions of dollars to Ukraine or Israel. I just don't. I care about America. That's it. I don't think we should be fighting Israel's wars. It's just not our responsibility.
Do you feel like it's that simple? Because when people say America first, the problem is I think they conflate that with America only. You know, America still needs their allies, especially. I know a lot of people do like that, which historically has just not worked for a country to operate on their own, not have any, whether it's trade deals or foreign funding. Now, I agree that I don't want to be giving Qatar or Israel or Ukraine or anybody money. I always say, Israel, I hope one day you don't need America, because if a country can't defend themselves, maybe you don't deserve a country. And that applies to everyone.
I agree with that.
However, it's hyper-fixated on Israel. Because when I was actually talking to Cenk about this on X, it was like a public dispute. I named him 8 countries that got as much money as Israel, if not more, that nobody cares to talk about. That's why it's Israel derangement syndrome.
People, though?
Hold on, hold on. Put the mass slaughter aside for a second. Let's just talk about dollars and cents. Israel receives more foreign aid than any other country by a lot. We have given them over $320 million. Since October 7th, we have given them $31 billion. And by the way, when I say give them $31 billion, we are literally, as Americans, borrowing money, because remember, we're in debt to the tune of $37 trillion. We are borrowing money to hand over to Israel to commit, let's keep it real, atrocities in Gaza and the West Bank.
And
that's the way
according to
I
the
view
United
it.
Nations genocide. So.
Right, and the word genocide is thrown on very loosely. I don't call losing a war a genocide. It's not a genocide. Let me make that very clear right now. What happened in Gaza is not a genocide.
So you know better than genocide scholars?
Oh, I'm sorry. Everyone's a genocide scholar. In light of everyone being a genocide scholar, I have friends that are genocide scholars.
Okay,
I know what the qualifications.
So what do you call it? Well, what is it exactly?
I call it a war that they lost.
flattened the entirety of the Gaza Strip.
They lost the war. They lost the war that they started.
They flattened it.
Why? If they were flattening the Gaza
Strip, they didn't just
Strip,
lose a
how
war.
come
They
Hamas
were
didn't
annihilated.
surrender?
We're talking about
Why wasn't there a surrender then? If they were being annihilated, where was it? You know what? We're losing this war. Hamas, I care about my civilians. A joke. Let me end this war before there's no place for them to live in.
Do the Israelis care about their civilians?
As a jihad.
Do the Israelis? Do they really?
Do
you know about the Hannibal Directive? Do you know what the Hannibal Directive is?
October 7th was the Hannibal Directive. That's the stupidest conspiracy theory.
It's not a conspiracy theory. Yoav Gallant confessed to it.
That they allowed October 7th to happen.
Look it up. Yoav Gallant, he did. They would rather kill their own people than allow Hamas to take the hostages and have leverage over the Israeli government. This has been confirmed. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
None other than the New York Times confirmed what Anna just said. The New York Times.
Oh, the New York Times, who can't make up their mind if one day the hostages were raped, the
May
hostages
I finish
weren't
my
raped.
sentence before you interject?
But that's not a great source, but okay.
But look, the end of the story
so
really
what is
is.
a good source?
End of the story really is.
They made so many
is your social media
corrections in New
feed
York
the only
Times?
acceptable source?
No, and I literally only speak for myself.
Can I finish my
social
sentence,
media
by
feed.
the way?
Yes,
I'm
please
still.
go
Can I
ahead.
finish the point about the New York Times?
Okay, Lindy, and then I want to hear from Dr. Loudon.
Okay, as I was saying, none other than the New York Times confirmed what Anna just said, that the Israeli government knew at least a year before October 7th that something would be coming.
Correct.
That an attack of some sort would be happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's
so
every
you
day in
can see
Israel.
that port.
Yeah, I understand that. That's every day in Israel. You're going to be in Israel. Hopefully, we don't have sirens next week, but every single day they gain intelligence.
Not just a regular
I
run-of-the-mill attack, but a catastrophic attack. They had intel and they sat on it and chose not to act.
They got intel a year ago that something was in the mix. They understood that, and that's honestly, they should always have their guard up. I'm very resentful that they couldn't anticipate something like that happening. I'm very angry that their guard was down and it took the IDF hours and all the IDF bases were attacked and they had no intel. However, if you're going to now turn that into Israel knew it was going to happen on that day, on that time, and they allowed it to happen, you're out of your mind.
Did I say that?
That's
Do
what
you
she's
need
saying.
to regurgitate?
That's what she said, and that's not what you said. But if anyone who's watching this believes that they knew October 7th was going to happen at 6:29 a.m. 2023, and they just told everyone, hey, stand down.
Okay, again, you're completely distorting whatever I just said.
No, pause, because there are IDF, and this is all on tape, so you can watch it for yourselves. There are IDF soldiers who have been testifying, and they say that the morning of October 7th, they were given a message to stand down. I don't know why. And it did take several hours, 6, 7 hours, for the IDF to respond to people as they were being massacred. And by the way, to be very clear, what Hamas did was disgusting. They committed atrocities. They targeted and killed innocent people. And I will never defend Hamas, ever. I don't care how angry anyone gets at me for that. But at the same time, there was the intel from a year ago, prior to the attack. Then 3 weeks prior to the attack, they received additional intel indicating that Hamas was planning on taking hostages. So if I were Benjamin Netanyahu, what would I do? I would make sure that I have a buildup of IDF soldiers at the border with Gaza to ensure that my people are safe. But he didn't do that, and I don't know why he didn't do that.
Well, I can tell you exactly why, because he's interested in his own political preservation, and he saw that as an opportunity to continue in power, because he was under investigation, as was his wife, and he was nervous as hell that they were going to get him. And that's why he refused to end the war until President Trump rightfully forced his hand.
You know, after all this, he's still going to win.
Am I allowed to finish a point?
Yeah, but you're like, Qatar talking points are really silly right
first of all,
that's not nice.
That is completely offensive.
I think it's offensive to say that the prime minister allowed a war to happen so he could stay in power, and he allowed the civilians to get slaughtered.
By the way, this is a commonly
Just because it's
commonly shared perception. It could be true, then it is true in this case, because Benjamin Netanyahu understood that as soon as the war is over, the Israeli people would rise up and demand his resignation, which is actually what's happening. They booed him. When Steve Witkoff gave that speech, they roared in support of President Trump, as they should have. This man was amazing. Through sheer willpower, he ended this war. All credit, well, for the time being anyway. He brought peace to the land. But Benjamin Netanyahu, when Witkoff mentioned his name, you know what happened?
I saw.
They booed.
I have social media.
Vehemently. You don't have to be disrespectful when I'm making these points. I'm just telling you that this man wanted to stay in power and realized that continuing the war was a surefire way to do that.
Would you feel silly if after this war is over, he wins in a democratic election because the majority of Israel actually continuously votes for him over and over again, and the minority that you saw that day on Steve Witkoff's video are the same minority that we see on X that are always bashing Trump and hosting these huge protests against Trump? Doesn't mean he lost the election.
Do you really think that Netanyahu is a good leader? I mean, prior to October 7th, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because he was trying to weaken the Supreme Court.
I couldn't care less if Bibi Netanyahu is the prime minister tomorrow, or if it's Naftali Bennett, or if it's, who's the guy that I don't like? Yair Lapid. I don't care, because my job as an American is to make sure that their relationship is good and anti-Semitism is in check in the United States. Tomorrow, I don't care who's the prime minister, but in this war, blaming him for every single move that they perceive as wrong, I don't think any prime minister, anyone, would have handled this war any differently than Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Oh, I vehemently disagree with that. I think, honestly, the person who's most responsible for anti-Semitism in the world today is Benjamin Netanyahu. And I love the Israeli people. I sincerely do. The Jewish, I mean, I have such a profound love for the Jewish people. Such a deep, deep, abiding love. Most of my friends are Jewish. The people who have been kindest to me in the darkest periods of my life were almost like all Jewish. But the travesty that Benjamin Netanyahu inflicted on them has been so severe, because people around the world see the atrocities going down in Gaza and they just can't stand it. And it can all be ascribed to one man. It's not the Jewish people. It's not the Israeli people. It's Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's the government.
And his selfish need to hold on to power.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask you, I actually want to ask everyone, what would you do if you were him? October 7th happened.
I would resign immediately.
October 7th happened. Do you think that now it's time for internal conflict and let's find the new prime minister? That's the first thing you do when your country's attacked?
I would call for him to resign immediately because he failed to be a leader in protecting his own people.
Okay, and then regarding the war, forget Netanyahu. You're the prime minister of Israel. How do you address October 7th?
You address October 7th. I mean, I've been led to believe that Mossad is like the most sophisticated intelligence gathering operation on the planet, which means that they would have the capability and capacity to, instead of leveling the entirety of the Gaza Strip, find where Hamas is and actually target Hamas. But that wasn't really the goal. The real goal was to make the Gaza Strip uninhabitable, engage in a campaign of ethnic cleansing. This is what the Israeli government says out loud on a regular basis, and essentially take and settle that land as part of the greater Israel project.
Exactly, I was just going to mention that. And by
so why
the way,
didn't they do it? They won. Now the war's over.
They're doing it right now.
They're taking Gaza?
They're going to take
Can
Gaza.
I buy property in Gaza now?
I mean, it would be pretty disgusting.
What if that didn't happen? But what if that doesn't happen? Are you going to rescind your statement that
absolutely? I will very happily rescind my statement.
I've been hearing that
please,
but I'm probably not going to have to do that.
I would love to be proven wrong, but and you know,
I would love to be proven wrong. That would make me so happy.
What would you have done if you were the Prime Minister of Israel after October 7th, besides resign? In terms of the war, how do you get your hostages back? By the way, Anna,
and what would you do? What would you?
What would I do?
If they found Hamas, then why did they level the entirety of the Gaza Strip? Every single residential building is gone.
You win a war until there's surrender.
Why are you killing women and children?
Because Hamas embeds themselves in civilian homes. Al-Shifa Hospital is Hamas headquarters. Do you even know that?
I don't believe
that
for a
Do
second.
She's saying find Hamas. Israel found them. They're all over the place.
Every building
in their uniforms.
Every building in Gaza had Hamas. Every single one.
Nurseries had rocket launchers. Schools, rocket launchers. Al-Shifa Hospital, headquarters. Netanyahu invades a hospital. Oh my God, it's a genocide. Why is Hamas in a hospital?
Are you saying that
Why are they in a school?
Are you saying that every one of the 67,000 people who lost their lives, many of whom are women and children,
I blame Hamas.
You're saying that it was, it was justified. Every one of them
should not have been civilian human shields. They should not have been in hospitals. Do you know everyone likes to talk about Bibi Netanyahu being precise when it comes to Hezbollah and genociding when it comes to Gaza? One thing, and I'm not giving credit to Hezbollah here, they didn't embed themselves in civilian homes. They actually wore their military uniform and were committing jihad out and proud in the public. When Hamas, during the war, everyone was in civilian clothing, but you notice now after the ceasefire, Hamas are taking the streets with their machine guns and kids, and everyone's Hamas now. But during the war, they were posing as civilians. They were posing as journalists, as doctors.
No one is buying your justifications for
disagreeing with that?
They bombed. They did controlled demolitions of residential buildings of every single university. They want to erase the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. We have eyes and ears. We saw what happened. You can see the aerial pictures of the entirety of the Gaza Strip right now. I'm not done talking. Let me finish my point.
Go ahead.
Okay? Every single hospital has been bombed. Every single university, Hamas. It's Hamas.
You know what? It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. Have no responsibility
Hamas thinks
whatsoever.
If I'm in civilian headquarters,
Hamas.
Israel can't bomb me.
So you're
Israel
telling
should
me,
lose the war because they're in civilian
when
homes?
you have the government officials from Israel literally saying out loud over and over again,
they don't
it
make the
doesn't matter.
decisions.
What
they don't call the shots.
Ends up happening.
They don't call the shots.
What they say ends up happening.
That's not true.
What they say ends up happening. They're going to resettle the Gaza Strip.
Okay, I'm going to give you one last stat from
Emily,
UNRWA, and then I'm going to move on. I just want to get this point out. Okay. According to you, there's no buildings left in Gaza. Okay. According to UNRWA numbers, which I don't even trust, they completely demolished, I'm talking, 73,000 buildings. They
83%.
Collapsed more, 83% of the buildings, right. If they killed 67,000 people and they demolished 73,000 buildings, that means they killed less than one person per entirety of a building that was knocked out. You know why? Because Israel might be the only military in the world that will send leaflets before they attack, sirens before they attack. Everyone in Gaza has Wi-Fi, apparently, alerts to their phone before they attack, and give them a chance to evacuate.
Are you going to appreciate getting
0.9 people per building?
Okay,
That's an amazing ratio for war.
We're close to now a death toll of 69,000 people slaughtered in Gaza.
Then that's 0.97 people per building.
I really don't want to yell, but you keep interrupting, and it makes it difficult for me to make my point when you're interrupting me. So please stop doing that. I don't want to yell. All right. Almost 69,000 people slaughtered, gone. There's 10,000 people missing, trapped under the rubble, presumed dead for obvious reasons, okay? How are you going to sit here and talk about they dropped leaflets. They dropped leaflets. Can people just drop leaflets at your home before they totally annihilate it and destroy it?
It totally blows my mind.
And you're going to say
that's
thank you?
That's one person per building.
Okay,
war ratio, that's the lowest in history of war.
Okay,
I gotta say,
that's pretty precise.
That argument is so insane to me.
How is that insane?
Because you're doing a ratio of people versus building.
If a whole building collapses and one person gets killed, that's precision attacking. That's my point, Anna. I'm not justifying anyone dying. I'm not justifying. I don't want anyone to die.
No.
I wish this war never started to begin with.
You do, though.
No, I don't.
If you don't see them as humans, their entire lives have been wiped out.
And I blame Hamas. I'm not happy their lives are destroyed, but this whole thing could have been avoided.
You know what this reminds me of?
It's almost like everyone forgets how this started.
It's just like an analogy. Let me give you, just to make it simple.
You don't have to defend this. I know you're smart.
I want to.
which is very concerning. But can I say sorry?
I want her to talk because she hasn't been able to speak. Sorry.
I'm just trying to get my point in for her.
I'll go to you next.
I really love the passion. I really do. And I think that, you know, in everything, as I've watched politics over my lifetime, I've realized that everything has to come back to, so what do we do about it? Because we can argue back and forth, and there are valid points. But I'm certainly not Switzerland here. I have all my own opinions. But the one thing that's not being mentioned is what has happened to Christian churches, Christian buildings, Christian people have also been bombed. And I want to know, where's the accountability for that in media, in our own country, by the way?
I agree.
Where's the accountability from that? I've never heard Israel mentioned. I've certainly never heard Netanyahu mention it. I would like to know the answer on that. And what about a three-state solution? Why is it always, you know, two-state or not? Why can't it be a three-state solution?
Wait, why can't it be Jews and Muslims live together? Why can't they be? How come Muslims are allowed to live in Israel, 2.8 million Muslims, but a Jew in Gaza is a hostage? Why does it have to be one state, two state? Can't be a country where everyone lives like the United States, perhaps?
I mean, that would be ideal, but Israel does not want that. They want a Jewish state. That's what they say.
And Hamas wants a Muslim state.
Okay, let them have their own state. Let them have self-determination. By the way, Palestinian Muslims and Christians have been living very peacefully together, side by side, in the West Bank. And in the West Bank, those
Jews
churches
weren't allowed, by the way.
Those churches, well, Jews tried to steal that land and settle that land in the West Bank. They're building illegal settlements as we speak and attempting to annex it. But
they can't legally live
the point
there
I'm trying to make is that not just in Gaza, where the only Catholic church was bombed by the IDF, years prior, there's a church in the West Bank that ended up getting bombed as well, and it was a disaster because there were people even sheltering in that church for safety, and they bombed that church anyway. So
yeah, it's confusing to be a Christian when you travel there and see all that. And again, I'm from Jewish lineage. I really, really hate everything that has happened here. I hope it amounts to good things eventually, right? We all hope that. I think everyone sitting at this table really hopes that. But it's really confusing. I don't understand things like why at the place where the Garden of Gethsemane, where there's a tomb of Jesus and so many holy sites like that, why is it allowed that these prayers are piped in so loud you can't even be there and say a prayer without? Why is that allowed? Why does the Knesset allow that? I don't understand it. So I think it comes down to, we can stop arguing if there are laws in place that reign over all of this. For example, when you guys were talking about the media and how much money has been spent buying influencers, I'm glad it's disclosed. I'm glad we know about it, like I said. But beyond that, what can be done? Should there be limits on
I can tell you exactly.
We need regulations, I think.
But do we? Because when you put in regulations, if I can just say really quickly, for example, election reform regulations that we put in a long time ago, all the money just then goes under the table. So disclosure and transparency, I think, are number one. I think that Americans need to demand that from everyone, not just Israel, not just other foreign interests. Total transparency, I think, is one thing. But I think having conversations about what happened, because the reality is, we may never know everything. So I think having conversations about solutions is a really good place to start to come together and to say, hey, maybe you think this and you think this. What can we agree on and work for together?
Yeah, there are some points that I just got to address. I can't let it slide on the table.
And then we got to move on.
Yeah, when somebody says, oh, I blame Hamas. I blame Hamas for everything. You know what it reminds me of? When an abusive husband punches you in the face, leaves a scar, and said, you made me do it. I blame, it's your fault that my fist landed in your face. It's your fault that you're all bruised. You made me do this. You made me slap you in the face. That's number one. And also, when someone clinically talks about death statistics, like murder, it's so flippantly, just using numbers like, reducing human beings to mere numbers. It reminds me of a very chilling Stalin quote. Joseph Stalin once said, millions of people dying is a tragedy. One person dying is a tragedy. Millions of people dying is a mere statistic.
Yep, that's so true.
And you just cannot reduce this to one death per building like it's nothing. Every single one of those deaths represented a mom, a father, a daughter, a brother, someone's loved one. You can't just say, oh, it's one, it's not a big deal.
I'm not dismissing
No, it's
every human life counts as much as the other, no matter their religion, where they're from, age, it doesn't matter. How about this? If it was an old man, I'd feel sorry. But my point is, everyone's acting like it's not a war. War is not pretty. It's not flowers and unicorns and roses. I can't help but to think, what would America have done if Mexico came to Burning Man, killed people, took hostages, and then started a war against Mexico, but all of a sudden, all the militants are in civilian homes? Would Trump have been like, you know what? I don't know. I'm not going to go because there's like women and children there.
Well,
so let's surrender this war. You keep the hostages because you're doing a good job embedding yourself in civilian homes. I'm not going to engage in this war. So, you know, we lost, you won. Keep killing the Jews.
Well,
Would any
actually,
leader have
after
done that?
September 11th, I will say the U.S. military did commit some war crimes, but they didn't level Afghanistan and they didn't level Iraq. And so it's really about how you engage in that war. And by the way, when the war crimes were committed in Abu Ghraib, for instance, when the torture reporting started to come out, the American people were highly critical. They didn't feel the need to provide cover for the war crimes our government had engaged in. And I think that that criticism is what reeled the federal government in. You're not seeing that in Israel right now because you have a legion of propagandists that keep justifying atrocities that are being committed in Gaza and the West Bank with our money. And that's the other issue
with the
people
criticism. I'm waiting for someone to have a better answer as what they would have done.
Well,
I'm
I
open
can
to
tell you
criticism.
exactly what we would have done. For example,
I would have done targeted, like, I know for a fact that they just wanted to level Gaza and get rid of the Palestinians.
You would have targeted who?
I would have targeted Hamas.
And you don't believe they were embedded in civilian homes?
No, I don't. I don't believe it. I think that's a talking point, and I think it's a weak talking point to say the least. Okay, Mossad's headquarters is near a residential area.
They target 1 million residentials every single day.
Okay,
every day there's
I guess they
400
did the right
rockets going
thing
into
because
Israel.
Mossad is embedded among civilians.
But that's what they are doing. And my point is, the Mossad is in Tel Aviv, correct. You are not going to find the IDF in any hospitals, or in tunnels under the hospitals, in residential towers, in schools, in nurseries. But the IDF is publishing literal videos. I went there myself.
Okay, so let me ask you something, Emily. All right?
But you don't
2
believe
years.
that?
No, I don't. 2 years.
There's video
Hold
evidence
on.
proving
2
you wrong.
years. They've been in Gaza for 2 years. Hamas is back out. And they're like, oh, we might need to go back in and do something about the terror tunnels. You had 2 years. You didn't do anything about the tunnels. You had 2 years. Hamas is still there. Seems like they spent most of their time leveling Gaza so they can make it unlivable and get rid of the Palestinians. That's what their whole goal was. That's my problem. My problem is the very people that they were supposed to target after the atrocities they committed in Israel, that wasn't their big objective. That wasn't their big goal. Their big goal was, you know what? We want to get rid of these Palestinians. Let's destroy everything they have, every university, every hospital, every school, every refugee camp. And that's what they did. That's what they did.
They could have done it a lot quicker than in 2 years if that was their goal, which I would never believe.
That reminds me of Carthage, you know, when the Romans put salt in the ground in order to make it unlivable, to ensure that they couldn't grow crops. Israel wanted to make sure that Gaza was completely unlivable. And I just wanted to say something else to a point that you raised earlier about how you alleged that Israel went out of its way to make sure that they spared civilian lives. Is that the point that you were trying to make? How do you then justify the double tap strike? And let me explain to our viewers what that is. For example, if Israel bombed a hospital, they would wait for rescuers to come.
Yeah, the rescue workers to show up and then bomb it again.
Bomb it again. So they know that people would flood the bombed area in order to save lives, as you should. And in the interim, they would wait, and then bomb all the rescue workers along with the original area.
Well, you mentioned before the bombs, they announce exactly where they're bombing at what time, which is unheard of in a war.
They did not announce that they were going to do a double tap on that hospital.
Fact. Every time there's a rocket sent,
okay, why don't we give you a moment to look up evidence of warning people of a double tap strike?
Okay, so we got to move on, okay?
We got to follow up on that because we can't let people make claims like that without substantiation. So let's give her 30 minutes to find the evidence.
Okay,
we can go to
for now, though,
minutes.
let's move on to the next story while Emily looks that up. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Trump's speech in Israel. It has raised some eyebrows among some on the right, which is really interesting to see. So President Donald Trump raised some eyebrows during a speech in Israel this week, especially as the guy who ran on an America First message. So what did he have to say? Take a look at this.
I promise and officially recognize the capital of Israel and move the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam, she's back there. Stand up, Miriam. Stand up. Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I could think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got 60 billion in the bank. 60 billion. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
So that moment upset a lot of people because, again, I do think that one of the things that voters found appealing about Trump is that he ran on wanting to serve this country. What's best for America? America first. And so when you are, singing the praises of a dual citizen who he suspects is more or prioritizes Israel over our own country, and it seems like he's celebrating that, it turned a lot of people off. What's really interesting and funny, if you ask me, is back in 2015, when Trump was running in the first Republican primary for president, he had tweeted the following about Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson is looking to give big dollars to Rubio because he feels he can mold him into his perfect little puppet. I agree. And then 10 years later, you have Trump basically taking that same money. So does that mean that he sees himself as a perfect little puppet for the Adelsons? I don't know. Last election cycle, Miriam Adelson did give Trump huge cash infusion, $100 million in return for allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. I know Trump has said vocally that he won't let that happen, but in practice, it's already happening. They're building illegal settlements in the West Bank as we speak.
But that was the deal. She gave Trump money and she told him, I want you to annex the West Bank.
Widely reported, yeah.
Widely reported?
It is.
That's not a fact. It's widely reported I'm getting paid $7,000. That's not a fact. It's widely reported. That's how Dean Kiswani justifies it, but that's defamation.
Why? Okay, so let me ask you something. Why would Miriam Adelson give him $100 million?
First of all, Trump and Sheldon, no, they go way back, long before Trump was even into politics.
Okay,
you're aware that they're good friends,
naive,
right? If I have $60 billion and my best friend's running for president, I'll give them $100 million too.
She was a fundraiser for the Democratic
Party. Do you know anything about my history? I was one of the biggest donors and fundraisers on the Democratic side. There's not a single donor who gave out of the kindness of their heart. Not a single one. I'm talking about the top level. I'm not talking about the grassroots.
Right.
Everyone has a quid pro quo in mind. You're completely naive to think that people do this out of altruism. Like, give me a fucking break.
I don't think does that out of altruism. I agree with you.
So nice.
So what is other
donations are definitely for a purpose. There's no question about that. But it's saying, and I think this is really important to note, that donor believes in the politics of that politician. That's what it should always say. I'm saying in an ideal world. That's what it should say, is that donor saying, I believe in you for whatever reason, not I want this from you. In an ideal world, I totally get that. But at the same time, I think you can't question Donald Trump's America First commitment. I realize that he said that. He takes rabbit trails. We all know he has personal loyalties and friendships. But here's the deal. Peace requires partnership. And a lot of times I feel like Trump is playing 3D chess with some of the statements that he makes. We may not know exactly why. He's saying the things he says, either out of loyalty or partnership building, which has benefited all of us in ways that I think are innumerable at this point, and I think we could all probably agree to that. Or he has some reason why he's saying something. So I think to accuse Donald Trump, I just don't think it's realistic, because it's not what you say, it's what you do. And what he's done so far, and I'm hearing everyone consensus really here, is to prove that he is America First. If it came down to Israel and the United States, there's not a question in the world where President Trump would come down on that.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I don't know if I fully believe that. I mean, listen, we're in debt, and he has been bankrolling the genocide in Gaza and putting us even deeper in debt. How is that America First?
You know, Israel started purchasing the weapons from America a long time ago.
No.
They gave it up.
Don't lie to me. $31 billion since October 7th. We give them the
Ukraine too, but I
money.
don't hear you bitching
They
about
take the
that.
money and buy some American
Israel.
weapons.
You're not okay with Ukraine, with the money we
No,
send
I'm not
Ukraine.
actually. I'm
feel the
totally
same-
sick.
Yet Israel purchased the weapons after Trump decided to
With
give them
our
weapons,
money,
but
Emily,
then
you
they
think
started
I'm
giving it back.
stupid?
I have a
Why do you
question.
think we had? Why did we allocate $31 billion
Has it
to
ever
Israel?
occurred to you? Maybe
Wait, didn't you just
maybe
tell us at the
America
beginning that
needs
they couldn't
something with
afford
Israel?
$7,000? You just said that at the very top of the hour. Now you're saying they're buying weapons. You can't have both.
Because there's money that's
You can't have
allocated
both,
towards
okay?
war,
If
and
they
there's money
can't-
allocated towards
you
public
can't
relations.
not.
They're
You
different
can't.
bank rolls,
Okay,
as
right.
you know, as a fundraiser.
So you're
Money gets
saying
allocated.
you can't have it both ways. Okay, it's just the Israeli government. They can figure it out. They're smart. If they can't afford $7,000, as you allege, they can't afford billions of dollars of weapons.
Well, they're busy
You
buying
can't
the
have-
weapons.
That's a
you
great
can't-
point.
You
That's actually
can't
a great
have your
point.
cake and eat it too, Emily. You just can't.
There's a big
Okay.
difference in paying PR wars for influencers who
It's
already
the
are
same
speaking in an
government.
echo chamber
Are you telling?
and buying
Are you telling
war
me?
weapons
I
from
know,
the United
Emily,
States of
but
America.
earlier you said that Israel can't afford to pay influencers $7,000 per post.
Correct. It's not in
and
their
then
budget.
you
It's
ventured
not
to
a priority
say
to them,
that
is my
Israel
point.
has like unlimited money to buy
Netanyahu
weapons
just
on their
said
own. They
at
don't.
the conference that you attended in that room with the influencers that it's the new front. It's the new frontier. It is a priority. It's his biggest priority. That's why he took time out of his busy day to meet with you guys.
And how come
It's a
not one
huge
person in the whole
priority.
room was paid like everyone's alleging? It's widely reported that everyone in that room was paid. I could say everyone in that
Let
room
me tell you,
was there
when
for free.
I worked, I would never received a cent from the DNC. No one ever paid me. I did it because I have money myself and I have a lot of wealthy friends, okay? So I'm not a staffer. I'm not a disgruntled employee. I will tell you one thing, though. The influencers that allege on the Democratic side who say they didn't take any money from the Democratic Party, they all did. Because there were shell companies, there were agencies that the DNC funneled money through in order to give these influencers cover to say, oh, I wasn't paid, for example, I wasn't paid by Israel. I wasn't paid by the Biden campaign. Because technically on paper, they weren't. They were paid by private donors and private companies in order to say that they are actually, it's organic, it's how they actually feel. All the while they are receiving money. Do you understand?
Okay, and I have a hypothetical question. If tomorrow I got bankrolled by Israel, I got Miriam Adelson type money coming into my bank account, I am already pro-Israel. Why can't I be paid for that? If I'm pro-Saudi Arabia, I love going to Riyadh. I'm there 3 times a year, and I love it.
Are
If
you
they wanted to
registered
give
as
me
a
money,
foreign agent
no,
under
but
FARA?
they're paying me for a service. I work
And you
there.
should be
they're
registering
paying me.
under
That's
FARA.
fine.
But I'm not
It's fine.
lobbying. I have nothing
It's
to do with
fine if they're
lobbying.
paying you.
I'm a person who's being employed by them. Why is that
on.
a problem? Because it's Israel? Because a million other countries are doing the same
But they're
thing.
not.
Okay,
By the way,
hold on, hold
Israel
on.
was the only country that emailed me, to be honest. You're saying all the countries around the world are doing it.
Hold
Israel
on.
was the only
But
foreign
that's
nation
you.
that's
I
ever.
can name you 35 people. It's not you that are being
As
reached
media,
out to by
I've had
other
invitations,
countries.
too.
Every
Besides
country.
Israel.
I'm sorry
Okay,
they reached
I
out to
haven't.
you.
I'm just saying.
That's you. But I know personally people. I'm not saying widely reported. I personally know people who have been reached out to by Qatar, by places like Venezuela, reaching out to people to try to fix their PR problem. This is not exclusive to Israel. Now, I want to bring up the Miriam Adelson point. Israel first, Trump first. First of all, I think she's more Israeli than American. That's already a fact. She speaks like this. She's a very cute woman from Israel. It's cute. It's funny. But I don't think it's a loyalty question. You can be very much pro two things when their values align. Do you really think with or without Miriam Adelson's money, Trump's not a Zionist? Without Miriam's money, you're going to tell me you don't
I don't
think
think Trump has
Israel?
strong feelings one way or the other, to be honest with you.
I disagree with you.
I don't think that
I don't think
America
Trump
likes Israel.
has, like... I
Regardless
don't
of
think
money.
Trump would be doing Israel's bidding to the extent he's doing Israel's bidding if it wasn't for money in politics and it wasn't for, you know,
I absolutely
donors
agree.
like
Do you think
Miriam
that's true?
Adelson.
I absolutely agree
I mean,
with
think
that.
about
His
this.
daughter's Jewish, and a lot of his friends, a lot of his closest friends are. I think President Trump has been pro-Israel for a very long time.
Way before
I don't
he
know
was
that he's ever
president.
labeled himself as Zionist. I don't know that I've ever
Pro-Israel
heard
means
that.
you're a Zionist.
Well, not necessarily.
so.
I think a Zionist is a distinction
I would say that I'm
that's
staunchly
maybe
pro-Israel.
a little different from
I consider
pro-Israel.
myself
What's
to be
the definition of
staunchly
Zionism?
Actually, the first love of my life is actually Jewish, and he went on Birthright and deepened my love for Israel and the Jewish community. So I love Israel. I detest the worst excesses of Zionism.
The
I
Greater
do.
Israel Project,
Exactly,
expansionism.
and the atrocities. It breaks my heart to see this happening. And another thing is, you brought up a few seconds ago that you see that the values of America and Israel. It doesn't sit well with me to conflate Israel with the Israeli government. by the way, because I think the Israeli people are beautiful.
Yeah.
They're just awesome.
Let's be clear about that.
Benjamin
Civilians
Netanyahu
are totally
that I have
What
a
about
problem with.
Israelis
Can
who
I finish
support
this point, though? Can I please just...
They're still civilians.
I have to
civilians.
finish this point, though.
It is what it is.
You were saying earlier how America's values and the United States' values coincide. I actually don't think that's true, because when prior to the peace plan, when the United States was clearly abetting the atrocities in Gaza, our enemies like Russia and China and Iran they were using our alliance with Israel against us and pointing to that and saying America's a hypocrite, America's abetting war crimes. So in that
Which
case,
country said that? Russia, China?
our adversaries.
Or telling
You
us
should
we're
take,
doing
Emily,
war
you should
crimes.
take a good look at what Kyiv looks like versus what Gaza City looks like.
Wait, do not ridicule me. I can see that look of disdain on your face.
It's hypocrisy, not
No,
disdain,
let
but
me
okay.
finish my point. They're pointing to other countries. When they try to find allies in South America, Africa, all around the world, they say, don't hang out with the United States, hang out with us. Because at least we are not abetting atrocities in Israel. At least we are not hypocrites. That's what I mean. Because they are winning the propaganda war against us. Everything is about propaganda and the war. They don't want an American-led world order. They are trying to topple us. Do you understand? They are trying to topple the American empire. And so this matters. The story around America matters.
It does.
American values matters. We cannot be seen as abetting atrocities. We cannot have the blood of 67,000 women and children on our hands.
I agree.
So, okay, first of all, again, it's a war. Second of all, my thing is, when I say they coincide with values, what would you say in the entire Middle East is the closest country to the United States in terms of fair elections, allowing LGBTQ people?
It's an apartheid state. How are you going to say it's fair elections? Palestinians aren't allowed to vote. And they're not even allowed to have their own state. They're not. Benjamin Netanyahu said multiple times, I will not allow the Palestinians to have their own state.
You know why? Because they're
stuck
like
in a situation. Oh, my God.
Wait, if you were Prime Minister
my God.
Netanyahu,
There's
and
no
Hamas was
in the West
governing
Bank,
Gaza,
Emily. There's
the
no Hamas
PLO
in
pay for slave.
Oh, the PLO
pay
too.
for slave
They're
better?
Palestinians. So by nature,
if you
being
kill a
Palestinians,
Jew,
they
if you kill
shouldn't
a
be
Jew,
allowed.
we're giving you $10,000. Is that a person you'd give a state? Because you're saying you're making it seem like the PLO are the good guys now.
Man,
when they stop funding people to kill Jews, maybe Netanyahu should negotiate with them. But until they stop raising their kids to say, hey, I know you want to go work and become an engineer, but if you kill a Jew, you'll get $10,000 per Jew.
The PLO is killing Jews in the West Bank. The PLO is on its knees.
Pay for slay.
Beyond deferential to the Israelis, doing everything they can to show we're being peaceful. Let us have our own state.
What about pay for slay?
What do they keep doing?
Peaceful?
What do they keep doing? They keep building illegal settlements. They keep building illegal settlements. They keep building illegal settlements.
What is pay for
but you
slay?
don't care, right? You don't care.
What is
Let me
pay
go in
for
your
slay?
neighborhood. What are you saying?
That's what they do in the West Bank. The PLO funds people to kill Jews. Has this not been something you've been informed of?
Have you not seen these
pay for slay? How about this?
You
I
live
think
in an alternate
Jews should be
universe.
allowed to live in the West Bank.
Why
are Jews not allowed?
I don't.
So you believe in apartheid
Because they keep building
when it comes
illegal
to Jews,
settlements.
What if I build a house legally? I buy land.
They're stealing land.
They don't want Jews in the West
Why
Bank.
don't they let the
That's
Palestinians
apartheid.
build houses in
There's
Israel?
2.8 million Arabs in Israel living better lives in Israel than the West Bank and Gaza combined. You just hate Jews. I will not.
No, I don't hate Jews.
Then why can't they live in the West Bank?
I hate disgusting,
Why can't they live in the West Bank?
Propagandists
Why can't a Jew
who treat
live in
human
Gaza?
beings like trash like
Why
you?
can't a Jew live in the West Bank, Anna?
No, it's fucking pathetic. All right, let's move on. Now that we've had that serious conversation, we're going to move on to something lighter, something fun. And that's the topic of Taylor Swift and how her new lyrics are supposedly MAGA-coded.
Thanks, Anna. Well, I'm a little embarrassed to admit how much I know about Taylor and Taylor Swift lore. She and I have the same birthday. She's from the same area in Pennsylvania. Our brothers are the same age. So I grew up listening to her music, and I know a ton about her. And there's been a recent uproar over her music and her new album called Life of a Showgirl. And yes, I already know all the lyrics. And the controversy is that many of her liberal fans, and a lot of her fans are actually liberal, which is actually one of the reasons why she decided to endorse Kamala Harris in the previous election. A lot of her fans are saying that her lyrics in her songs are trad wife, which is short for traditional wife, and MAGA coded. And what does that mean? She went from she became famous for writing love songs, about really bad boyfriends.
For breakups.
Exactly. But now she's singing about wanting, quote unquote, the entire block to look like you. Direct quote, by the way, from the song Wish List. Yes, I know too much. and saying that she just wants to have kids, she just wants to have a basketball hoop, she just wants to get married. And people are saying that, in addition, her song Canceled, in which she says, I want all my friends draped in scandal and Gucci, is a song that alludes to her famously MAGA supporter friend, Brittany Mahomes, who's the wife of Patrick Mahomes, who's, both of them are Trump supporters, and unabashedly so. So a lot of her fans are upset. They see it as a betrayal of everything that she purported it to be. And somebody who stood up for her is a fellow celebrity called Ruby Rose, who says, and I think we have a photo of her message in support of Taylor. She said that Taylor used to go through GoFundMe pages as though they were social media posts, just seeing who she could donate to. And so that all the allegations of her being MAGA and trad wife are actually unfounded. But I take issue with that because I actually don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with being a trad wife and being MAGA.
Why does it have to be right-coded? Right? Like, I'm sure there are liberal women who want to stay home, raise their kids.
Well, I'm a conservative woman, and I'd love to be a trad wife. I have a career, and I love it. My career gives me deep meaning, but there's nothing more important to me than love. There's just nothing that transcends that. Yeah. And everything I do is for my audience of one. Like, I don't care, I can have thousands of people watching, but is that one person watching, and is he proud of me? Yeah. That is my North Star. He's my raison d'etre. So,
Gina, you're a working mother, working wife.
Yeah.
You could do both.
5 kids, 36 years.
Five kids?
Yes.
You look amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
How did you do that?
And, but I think it's sad that these leftists who want to control popular culture so badly that they're willing to compromise the best parts of life, right?
I agree, actually.
I mean, what is wrong with a trad wife? And how desperate and horribly angry do you have to be to come down on your own cultural icon if that's who you pick? And I'm sorry, I mean, no offense by this. But if you're a Swiftie and you have such a big problem with this, I think it's time to look in the mirror a little bit.
Amen.
Because,
I agree, yeah.
because are you going to really skip out on you're going to skip out on love. You're going to skip out on romance. You can't really love someone enough to say that I think the whole block should look like you or whatever you said. I don't listen to the music, but whatever you said.
You're lucky I didn't break out in song.
We're ready. I think it would be great. But no, I think it's really sad. And I think it's really time to look at what you say you value. If she really was going through GoFundMe's like most people go through social media, and she was looking for places to donate, is she incapable of that? If she has a husband and maybe a child and enjoys some parts of life rather than just being angry all the time? Honestly, to the viewers who are out there thinking that she's that they're justified in their critique of her, I just think that's really sad. And here's what I would say to conservatives who are saying right now, because I can hear their voices. They're saying, I don't care what Taylor Swift does. I don't care. Then you get on creating a parallel economy and raising people up to where they have the kind of influence that Taylor Swift has, because she does have influence. You can deny that you like her, that's fine, but she does have influence. And just one more thing, for all of those who think that, cultural icons do such shaping of our culture, I would challenge you to show me any ad campaign in 2024, 2025, anytime recently, where a cultural icon had more influence than the base voter. The base voter, they are the ones with the power. And not to mention, I can't think of a bigger cultural icon than Donald Trump right now.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. I have a perfect graphic in response to what you just said. May we share it? Okay, so this NBC News report came out a few months ago, or last month actually. I have terrible eyesight, unfortunately. I'm basically blind. Thank you so much. Thank you. But basically, it shows that liberal women, people who voted for Harris, deprioritize having kids and settling down. It's just not important to them. I think that's a little bit, what do you think? I think it's a little bit troubling.
I personally don't care. I think this is where I actually do care. I care when you see people be judgmental and say things like, destroy the nuclear family or dismantle the nuclear family. Like, that's a tweet I saw from, I believe it was like a DSA chapter, and it's like, I found that gross because it's like, I think we should support people in the decisions they choose to make about their personal, intimate lives. And so for some people, maybe they've decided I wouldn't be a good parent and I don't want to have kids. I'd rather just,
Totally fine.
I'd be a wife, you know, whatever, or husband, but I'm just not someone who wants to raise kids. I think that's fine. Obviously, there are gay couples who raise kids. There are also people who want to have a traditional nuclear family, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I think the important thing at the center of all of it, regardless of what you choose, is valuing family. Because at the end of the day, yes, I have a career. I love my career. I get fulfillment out of it. But in terms of like what makes me happy, what fulfills me, what keeps me going, it's my husband, it's my parents, it's my brother, my nieces, my nephews. That makes life worth living. And I wish the left in general understood that rather than essentially allow the right to take control or take hold of that narrative.
My question is just like, it's not a question. My issue runs a little bit deeper here where it's, let's say, and I don't think she did, let's say by God's miracle, Taylor Swift voted for Trump, which probably didn't happen. I think her husband did, by the way.
I think so too.
I definitely think he did. But what is the biggest issue? It's funny that the Democrats claim to be this party of inclusivity and acceptance and welcoming, but it's unless you disagree with their political agenda.
Right.
So my thing is also, why do we let ourselves, and this is like a reflection moment, get to a place of worship of celebrities to the point that it even matters to you? I am obsessed with Lady Gaga. Your Taylor Swift is my Lady Gaga. She's as Democrat as it gets. I still love her music. I rock with it. And the reason I'm so cool with her disagreeing with me politically is because I think Kamala's campaign proved nobody cares who your favorite celebrity is voting for because, and this is what I told Andrew Cuomo, celebrity friends aren't going to help you win the election because there's nothing about being rich and famous that's relatable to the average American. So if anything, it actually hurts the campaign.
Emily, I actually completely agree with you.
There we go.
Yes, and I think the last thing you said was so accurate. It hurts your campaign because people like Oprah, Cardi B, Beyonce, they were paid millions of dollars in appearance fees, and they kept denying it.
Such a waste.
But the thing is, I was, you know, I've helped to finance the Harris campaign. Like, if anyone would know, I would know. And what they had was, again, shell companies. For example, Oprah had a company called Harpo, and you turn it around. It's like Oprah, that company was paid $2 million in production costs that she didn't have to take.
I think what the Democrats thought would work, and it obviously didn't because people don't care, is you don't have to have a message. You don't have to offer anything in terms of policy solutions. All you need to do is lean on celebrity, have Beyonce perform. People like shiny things, but I think Americans are a lot smarter than that, and that's part of the reason why Trump ended up winning the popular vote. He actually ran a campaign, even if I disagree with some of his policies, right? He ran a campaign focusing on the issues and what he wants to do about it. When you look at the Harris campaign, albeit she had a very short period of time to campaign, but even with that in mind, she spent that time pushing a pretty muddled message. Like, I didn't know what her values were by the end of the election.
Or what she was going to do to fix your life.
Exactly,
right? That's what politicians should be there for, is to serve the American people. But I will say, it's very frustrating to me, not to attack anyone on this panel, but it's very frustrating to me what Democrats have done just to divide our culture. And I'm not going to say Republicans are completely innocent of that, but I will say, in light of losing Charlie, in light of the assassination attempt on Steve Scalise, in light of the assassination attempts on our president, it is high time. And I really wish I were hearing more out of Democrat politicians who have the ability to influence, and honestly, cultural icons. Has Taylor Swift made a statement about Charlie Kirk's death?
She's not going to.
Yeah,
because
but that
she's
is a mistake.
Stick out her neck. She's not going to compromise her.
Well, that's terrible.
I can't believe that would be compromising her brand,
because
but you're right. Yeah.
It's just really gross. And she didn't even want to endorse Harris until her liberal fans raised hell over it. Everything she does is a clear calculation, which is why I don't even consider myself a Swiftie, because I think of her as more of a businesswoman than I think of her as an artist.
Well, I feel like that's also the problem with their campaign using celebrities. There are people who worship the celebrities, and it goes to the demographic of like middle school, high school. Like I remember being in middle school and dying for Harry Styles. But then there's just a certain age
Harry.
that you just get, like 18, you're in even high school. I don't think I cared about any celebrities because my SATs just killed me.
I'm always in love with Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm sorry, that's never going to go away.
But do you care who he votes for, honestly?
I was actually really bummed to see that he's a diehard Democrat.
He is?
He is, yeah.
I didn't need to know
I think there's a difference, though, between those of us who live it every day, caring what. Like, I won't listen to Taylor Swift exactly because of her politics.
Really?
Yeah, because it's how
But
it's how I
think
vote
she's a
with my
secret
pocketbook.
conservative. I literally think she's
That's
a
even
secret
worse.
conservative.
Okay, fine, but
That
what
means she's
she
a sellout.
does is so divisive that I just won't support anything that she does. And I'm not saying that every decision I make regarding entertainment. I've gone to movies that I know, we all do it. We can all indict each other, but we all do it. But the bottom line is, I think we do have a chance to, I call it boycott and boycott. We have a chance to support things that we believe with our money.
I love that.
And we have a chance to support things, to turn against things, or not support things, or not even pay attention to things, not even let them into our radar, because there are so many important things to do, starting with explaining to this country that just because I believe something different from you doesn't mean that I want to kill you, and it certainly doesn't mean that I want to kill children,
Right.
or that I want. That's where it gets just.
Are
so
you thinking of
crazy.
Jay Jones?
Might be.
Okay.
Might
Oh my
be.
God, that J. Jones story is insane.
And by the way, to
why
this
will
day,
no
not a
one
single
disavow?
Democrat has
No,
a single Democrat has said he needs to step down. From
Okay,
office. Not a single
that guy,
Democrat.
I literally can't believe the lack of reaction
And he has
from
children.
the Democratic
By
Party.
the way, just today,
he
I
had
just-
multiple opportunities.
Right.
In this. Okay, first you
Go ahead,
explain.
go ahead.
Basically, this is like 2 years ago.
And
or
I have
3
an
years
update
ago.
on this because this morning something happened.
So Jay Jones, at the time, he was running for public office in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, and he was texting with a Republican, by the way, and was talking about how he wants, like, his political opponent's children to die.
And he has children.
And he knows the children. He's
I mean, not that it's
referring
okay
to,
if you
by the
don't have
way.
children, but if you do have children, you are. I'm sorry.
And
You
some-
are mentally imbalanced.
And by the way,
and
sometimes
the person-
sometimes when you're angry, maybe you say things that are hyperbolic.
You don't say that. You don't say
I agree, but
Especially not on a
she
text.
gave
Exactly.
him,
He's like dumb as shit.
she gave him multiple opportunities
walk it back and
reel it
still-
back,
yeah.
walk it back, and he wouldn't do it. Like,
do it.
it's so gross.
And by the way, Tim Kaine, who's a senior senator in Virginia, refused to say that he should step aside. It's a huge indictment on Democrats if they're not saying a single thing. They should all be calling for it.
I agree
And
with
this
you.
is in the
I
same
agree.
state, by the way, that where the Democrats just about demanded someone step down for appearing in blackface, which I'm not condoning. But this was in college. It was years ago. He wasn't asking for anyone to be killed. This is a man literally with children saying that he wishes death on someone's children. That person is not mentally stable and should not be promoted by any party.
I just think what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if Democrats historically have called for people to resign over much smaller issues, you have to hold your own accountable when he advocates for harm to be done to children. Come on.
And Anna, I'm telling you, if the Democrats would do this,
would
that
gain
is
so
how they
much
find their
respect.
footing again.
I
But
wish
they're
they
never
would.
going to
So-
because they get pissed.
then they're
when-
done.
They're
done.
That's what I'm saying. They're at a 19% approval rating. Do you remember a couple years ago, Kirsten Gillibrand and her the woke brigade got really pissed at Al Franken because he made a hand motion around someone's boobs. They cast a senator out of the Senate
They did,
for that
yeah.
photo,
Yeah.
but they won't ask someone to step aside because he says he wants to murder, that he wants children to die.
I'll
It's
state
just
the
completely-
obvious. It's because a lot of people don't care that people are being killed for their political opinions. You know,
Not only
you
do they
mentioned
not
Charlie
care, they
Kirk,
want
they're
it.
happy.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, yesterday on Charlie Kirk's birthday, I was a little obnoxious. I went all over Manhattan sticking Charlie Kirk stickers on poles, and the messaging said, like, just because you're offended doesn't mean that you're right, or like some of his iconic quotes, and I like assorted them. I promise you, I was so proud to put my first sticker. I put it on, I go like this. A man's arm reaches behind me, snatches it off. He's like a tall, just like normal looking guy. And he goes, "You support an effing fascist and you're a fascist too." And I look at him and I was feeling brave. I had security with me. And I'm like, "Okay, what didn't you like about Charlie Kirk?" He's like, "He supported slavery." I said, "Show me where he said that." He's scrambling on his phone. I'm like, "I got a lot of time. My Fox News is at 8. He couldn't find it. And he's like, "Well, you're next." And I'm like, forget the fact that you want them to condemn political
charges
assassins.
right there.
Dude, I wish
Citizens
my
arrest.
camera guy got his face. I'm like, I would have doxed him so bad. But anyway, forget the fact that they don't condemn it. They actually support it. But I don't know why there's not one Democrat, one moderate Democrat who could come out and be like, guys, this is why our party's failing. Someone needs to say something. I barely saw outrage about Charlie Kirk. I saw some like fake tweets here and there from some people. Better than nothing. But I'll tell you something. I don't like Joe Biden. Would I wish him anything ill? No. When he came out and he said he had cancer, I was one of the first people that commented on his tweet and put out a tweet. Donald Trump Jr. put out a tweet. It's almost like every Republican wished him healthy recovery, but you will never see that mutual.
Emily,
the bullets fly one way.
That's absolutely right. And again, thank you. I just want to say, to your point, when Melissa Hortman and her husband were gunned down brutally through the door, by the way, a murderer shot them, murdered them through their front door. All the Republicans signed on to a resolution condemning their murder in the House of Representatives. They failed to do that for Charlie Kirk. Democrats refused to sign on, and the 3 white Democrats who did sign on faced the wrath of none other than Jasmine Crockett, who said, "Oh no, white Democrats, they stick up for their race. They shouldn't have signed that."
This is the problem.
Yeah,
this is the problem with all of the identity politics, all of the DEI, the fact that we have called people who basically walked through a Capitol on January 6th terrorists, insurgents. You can't commit an insurgency without a gun. Just facts here. And at the same time, we have not talked about who the real terrorists are. Operation Quiet Skies, I don't know if you guys read about that, where American citizens were deemed terrorists. I was one of them, simply because I did my job. I went and reported on January 6th.
Is that the same
Tulsi
situation?
Gabbard, same operation. We're finding out about all of these covert operations now. This is why the best thing you can do, if you're really passionate about the reasons why you think you didn't like Charlie Kirk, number one, do your research. Google how many times he said he wants slavery, right? Google it. Good luck with that, because you will never find it. But number two, come together with people on the other side and have conversations like we're having right now. This is so important. I told you before the show, my dad was a very leftist individual.
Wow.
My whole life, I was subjected to conversations and debate that got very heated, way even more than you. One day I threw a whole bunch of microscopic pieces that I was assembling for his company across a room that were, you couldn't do anything about it at that point. They were gone. But we managed to have these conversations. If you will, just challenge yourself with one thing. You know, nothing in life comes easy. I tell my children this all the time. Sit across from someone you disagree with. Go to lunch with them. Have a conversation with them. Find what you agree on. And you might just find that you were wrong in some areas, but you might also find that you can make a friend that you disagree with on some things.
That's very true, yeah.
I think it's so important. I think it's more important than perhaps anything else we're talking about. And then once you come up with solutions, lobby for those solutions.
Yeah.
Because everything takes a law. We can disagree all day long, but if you can't sit down and draft the legislation and present it to a congressman or a senator or somebody who can do something about it, then you are never going to fix it, and we are going to ruminate ourselves into oblivion on our tribalism.
I think we should leave on that positive note. I totally agree with you entirely.
That was a beautiful turn of phrase.
Yes.
Ruminate into oblivion. Wow.
I love it.
That was poetic.
I love it. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I want to give everyone an opportunity to plug their work, starting with Emily.
On Instagram, Emily.Austin. This Tuesday, I'm launching the Emily Austin Show. You can find me on YouTube.
All right.
Real Dr. Gina across all social media, and I have a brand new children's book out.
Oh, that's awesome. What's it called?
It's called The Days of Creation by Heart. I co-wrote it with Dr. James Mosley of Liberty University, and we're very excited. It's a 17-book series helping children actually memorize things that matter in life, because I realized my kids memorize like Good Night Moon, where the wild things are, and like maybe I should, So we have the guy who animated Veggie Tales. For those of you who remember, he did our illustrations. It's a beautiful book, and it's really special to me, and it's interactive. And so I would encourage people, we're at like number 96 right now on Amazon, so I would encourage people to go, Days of Creation by Heart. And then I host a show every morning on Real America's Voice called America's Sunrise, and I would invite you guys to that, 8 to 10 Eastern every single day.
Love it. Beautiful. All right. I'm Anna Kasparian. You guys can find me all over social media under my name, and send me a message or question over at Manect. Lindy?
I'm Lindy Lee. I'm on Manect, and Lindy Lee on everything else. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We love you. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next week.